Hello, future Boilermakers, and welcome to our YouTube live broadcast for the Department of Computer Graphics Technology. And this one focusing in on our animation and visual effects and game development and design majors in the Polytechnic Institute here at Purdue University. My name is Ryne Kerchner. I'm the Associate Director of Recruitment for the Polytechnic, and I first want to say congratulations to our admitted student viewers who have been admitted to one of these majors here in the Polytechnic Institute. And we are so glad that you could join us tonight for our panel discussion to give you some more insight and information about these two majors in the CGT department. So we have several faculty members, an academic advisor, a couple of current students with us tonight who are our panelists. I'll have them introduce themselves here in a minute. But I first want to kind of give you an idea of what's going to happen tonight. We have several topics that we have created, questions that we're going to ask our panelists, but we also want to know what you want to know. So you can submit questions via the YouTube chat by signing into your Google account and just typing them in. We have our technical director, John O'Malley, behind the scenes, and I will be taking a look at that chat as we go through the broadcast tonight. So any questions you want to submit, you have for our panelists, please let us know. We'll be sure to try to ask them tonight. If we don't get to your question though, please feel free to follow up with us. Send us an email to techrecruit@purdue.edu, and we'll make sure we respond to that and give you some more information later on as well. So with that, I will have our panelists introduce themselves with your name, your position within the university, for our faculty members, a little bit about your courses that you teach as well in the department. So I'll go down my list here. We'll start with Aidan.
Guys, I'm Aidan James. I'm a freshman here at Purdue. I'm an animation and studio art and technology major, and I live in Fishers, Indiana.
All right, next we have Dan.
Hi, my name is Dan Triplett. I'm a professor in computer graphics technology. More specifically, I have specialization in game development and visual effects. Um, I worked in the game industry for about 7 years, and then chose a different path after that. But I still love making art. I was more on the art side. I was an environment artist in the industry, and I worked on a whole bunch of big games. And I'm here just to say hello and answer questions.
Well, I'm sure our viewers will want to hear about some of those games you worked on at some point tonight.
Sure.
All right, next up is David.
Hi, my name is David Whittinghill. I'm an associate professor in CGT. I'm the lead for game development, the lead on the major. So I get to attend a lot of meetings. But yeah, I'm a game programmer, and I've worked in the games industry as well as working on simulations. And yeah, that's it.
All right, very cool. Next up is Heather.
Hi, I'm Heather Mayorga. I'm in the computer graphics technology area, and I'm an academic advisor, so I help the students get from freshman year through graduation.
All right, very good. Next up is Nasheet.
Hey everyone, I'm Nasheet Zaman. I'm a professor in computer graphics technology, specifically in animation and visual effects. Prior to teaching, I also worked in the industry for about 10 years in animation and visual effects studios, so it's been great to take that into the classroom, and hope we can all answer all your questions about the program.
Awesome, same thing as Dan. We'll want to hear about those things as well. Next up, Rob.
Hi, my name's Rob Howard. I'm a professor of practice in CGT, and I teach game development courses, game design, game production, level design, those sorts of topics. Much like Dan and Nasheet, I did have an industry career of about 10 years before coming to Purdue. Worked on a number of cool games, probably most well known for BioShock Infinite, being a developer on that one.
All right, that's awesome. And last but certainly not least, Uma Claire.
Hello, my name is Uma Claire. I'm a freshman here at Purdue. I'm majoring in game dev, animation, and VFX, and I'm from Dallas, Texas. It's nice to meet you guys.
All right, awesome. So I think our first question we're going to start with is for our faculty members, and maybe I think David, we'll start with you since you said you're the lead on the game design major. How do you describe the major specific courses in the department? How are they designed? The courses like lecture, lab, group projects. How is that approached with our students here?
Sure. We try to give students a chance to develop their game development skills, whether they're artists or programmers or designers, We try to give them equal opportunity to work individually to make sure they understand they've got like a strong personal repertoire of skills, but then they also take those skills and work in team projects very early in your career. Like as a freshman, you begin working in team projects. And teams are often set up in such a way that there's an artist, there's a programmer, there's a designer, and they come together and try to complement one another's work. And that's a very that happens in the games industry a lot, where there's that kind of specialization. So we try to mirror that with our curriculum as much as possible. So toward the beginning in your freshman and sophomore year, there's much more lecture where you're going to sit down and something will be explained to you. And then during the labs, you'll go off and try it out and you'll get good at it. And then later, toward your junior and senior years, you get more autonomy to work on these big projects that are of your own design, and you can work with some of the friends you've made since you've been here, and you come up with some really ambitious projects. I think that's kind of in a nutshell.
Sure. Okay. Sounds good. Well, Nasheet, maybe more so for in the animation area, how would you describe the courses and how they're designed for you all?
In some ways, it is very similar to games. Their classes are sort of equally divided between lecture and lab. So, we'll have lecture to go over some of the foundational topics, and then in the lab sessions, you would be going through tutorials and then working on your own projects. And the beginnings of most courses are really focused on developing those foundational software skills, and then as it gets later in the semester, you get to work on more creative projects, come up with your own ideas and execute them using the skills you've developed. And then in the higher level classes, there are some opportunities to collaborate and completely pick a path within animation that you want to specialize in and tailor the projects to that, and collaborate with other students if you decide to go that direction.
All right, very cool. And Dan or Rob, if you want to jump in anything more specific, anything you want to add into how your courses are designed, or maybe some of the projects you have your students work on. Well, Dan, we'll start with you on that one.
Sure. As much as I can, I try to have classes where there's a lot of hands-on, and I try to foster an experience that you wouldn't get from just like taking a course online. So for instance, right now, one of my classes is photorealistic shaders, and we have a number of cameras, and we actually go out and we do something that's called photogrammetry. So we'll do it within, our labs, but we also go out to the outdoors. We had a warm day last week where we actually went out and we took a bunch of pictures, and then we reconstruct the objects within or whatever it is we're taking pictures of in the computer, and we make models from it that you can use within games or animation. So I guess to just make it short so Rob can answer too, just try to do as much hands-on as possible. There are times where you have like large classes where it's kind of like general knowledge, where you may be sitting in a lecture hall with a whole bunch of other students. Those may be a little bit different. Those are more like individual skills. But as you get further along, we try to have more of these classes where you wouldn't get that experience anywhere else, or at least not online.
And what I'll add to that is I'll talk a little bit about the freshman experience in particular, because that might be of interest to incoming students. And I do have the privilege of teaching one of the required freshman courses, CGT 105. And so what we try to do for games majors in the freshman year is we try to give you the sort of hands-on technical experience that's going to be CGT 245 and 255. That's a fall and spring cycle. You get right down into the game engine, make things, get your hands dirty. But in 105, which is the class I teach, this is where you get to kind of learn about the history of the medium. You get to learn about game design fundamentals kind of in a technology agnostic manner, which we think is very helpful to have that opportunity to do that. And so it is a very well-rounded, I would say, freshman experience, that and the other CGT core electives that you have to take.
Well, Rob, that's a kind of a good segue because you mentioned the game engines, and I think the next question I was going to ask all the faculty as well would be, what are some of those software programs or technology that the students are learning and working with when they're in the program? Rob, we'll start with you on that one.
Right. So from my side of things, since I teach more kind of game design oriented topics, also kind of game scripting and programming a bit as well. Really, the Unreal game engine is something we use a lot here, but we do also use Unity for some things, and actually we're kind of beefing that up a little bit to try to get things a little more balanced there. We love Unreal here, but it's good to be able to go back and forth because each kind of major game software package has their own sort of idiosyncrasies, right? So that is kind of becoming, I would say, more in balance. And as far as my classes go, Visual Studio for some of the programming that happens certainly gets used. Your Microsoft Office type stuff, but really, I think some of the students probably want to hear from Dan and Nasheet. I would guess in terms of the art pipeline tools. So it might be good to bounce to them at this point.
Sure, and Nasheet, you want to add something along those lines?
Sure. For animation and VFX, primarily we are using Autodesk Maya, and we use a lot of the Adobe products too, After Effects, Premiere, Photoshop. And then there's ZBrush for 3D modeling, Substance Painter for texture painting, and Houdini for effect simulation. Yeah, and then Dan, did you want to add to that?
Sure, yeah. So as Nasheet said, a lot of the work that I do is in Maya. I'm actually, for my basic modeling class, I'm looking at migrating it to Blender because models can be done in any software, and a lot of students now are coming in with Blender experience, and there's a ton of resources online. So even if you jump into Maya in a later class, you could still model in Blender if you wanted to, and just bring it into Maya. Blender also allows you to sculpt, which ZBrush. Typically, I use ZBrush for sculpting, but I like the option of being able to teach like an intro class where they can actually learn sculpting as well. So there's that. I use Houdini for my VFX classes primarily. That's the de facto VFX software out there. I also use stuff like Aggie software, for instance. I mentioned photogrammetry earlier. We use a thing called Metashape by a company called AggieSoft. It's a great program. Trying to think what else. Substance Designer. Nasheet mentioned Substance Painter. I also teach stuff in Substance Designer. I teach Photoshop. And sometimes like we'll jump around to things where we use a program for just one particular thing. For instance, like in my photogrammetry class or my photorealistic shaders class, we use ZBrush, but most of ZBrush is just because it's so good at processing high poly meshes. So that's like something that we'll use, but we don't actually use it for like most of the class. So there's a variety. We try to stay software agnostic, meaning that if somebody wants to teach in a certain software, that's fine. But typically, as a team, we try to keep it so that we're sort of going in the same direction and not going off in too many outliers, so the students don't have to learn more interfaces than they need to.
All right, thank you for that. And David, anything you want to add in regards to how you oversee the operations here?
Well, the games faculty, we meet very frequently, we talk a lot, and we're very mindful of the end goal of what students want to do when they graduate. And I would say 19 out of 20 students want to be game developers if they come to the games program. And we try to be responsive to that and make sure that across the whole program, students are getting those skills that are going to look good for them when they go interviewing. And the technical skills account for maybe half of what will get them jobs. The other half is, can you work in a team? Can you be reliable? Can you get along with others? Are you difficult? Like we encourage strong personalities, but we also want to try to help you shape that personality so that it can mend well with others toward common objectives. Because boy, oh boy, That's really important. We hear it every time from recruiters. So, we're always looking at what we're doing. We talk about, the tools that are being used in each other's classes, and we look for ways for that to complement, to go across different classes whenever possible. Like Professor Triplett was saying about, try to keep the students from having to learn too many interfaces. Because if you know the core concepts, there's often lots of tools that could do the same thing. So it's not as good a use of your time to learn 3 different tools to do the same job. Yeah, and so, we try to really stay engaged with our students and make sure that we know what their needs are, and maybe where there's some gaps, where we got to fill in some stuff, or maybe we're assuming we covered something in enough depth that maybe we haven't. And so, we're always taking in that student input to try to keep improving as we go. And as the area lead, I tend to be, the person who leads those meetings. But once we all get meeting, it's just we throw our data on the table and we figure out how to make everything work.
I think that sounds good. And speaking of our students, I want to hear from them about, we heard about what you're teaching. Let's hear from our students about what projects you're working on. What have you done so far in your time here in the Polytechnic? So Aidan, we'll start with you. Just kind of tell us, give us an idea of some of the courses you've taken, the projects you worked on, and how those have gone so far. And then Claire, same question for you when she's done.
Hi, so presently I'm currently taking a CGT 241, which is computer animation. It's the first class that you'll take for that class. And for that, our final project is doing a short film, or at least taking scenes from a short film idea that you pitch. And for that, you get to form a small team and actually have your short film seen to fruition. So it's really cool, and it's honestly kind of mimicking the industry because I got to pitch my idea and now my idea is being made, and I'm kind of leading a small group of people and delegating to their strengths and seeing how we can fully make as many scenes as we possibly can until the year's up. So it's something that's really cool, and I'm really looking forward to it. And it's definitely very fun since that's what's going on in the industry currently.
As for me, there are a lot of projects going on right now. Final projects have just started booting up, and I've been taking a lot of CGTs this semester. So I'm actually in 2 Professor Triplett's classes right now, and 1 with Professor Howard. So it's really hard to say which project is my favorite. And so right now I am for my CGT 255, which is Game Dev 2. I pitched an idea to my class of a game I wanted to make, imagine Stardew Valley, but with time travel. And then a bunch of my classmates came and approached me. They emailed me after class, and they're like, hey, I really liked your idea. Can I work with you on it? And so I formed a team of 4. I'm the artist, and I let the person who's into producing, wanted to do that for his career, I kind of let him take the reins, just here's my idea. I will let you do the delegating. And so I've been spending the past couple weeks, I've got a couple weeks longer for it, making models, making characters, just creating all of the art for that. And then I just pitched my final project idea for my modeling class, and I hope to sculpt a character from scratch, but I'm just waiting for a couple details to fall through to really get started on that. But it's been a lot of fun.
Those do sound like a lot of fun. Like you said, Aidan, mimicking the industry and then kind of working with different folks and different aspects of your project. That's really cool. We did have a question from the chat. Just want to see maybe Nasheet, you can give us an answer of how many students are in a typical class in these majors.
Typically, there are about a maximum of 30 students per classroom, and there might be multiple sections of classes just to make sure that everybody gets the attention that they need from the faculty, and tends to work out pretty well with the lab space.
Okay, thank you for that.
I would add to that.
Yeah, David, go ahead.
And the intro game class is actually pretty large. the last time I taught it in the fall, it was 150 students, which might sound intimidating, but what happens is you break off into labs, and in those lab sessions, you work with our TA. He's one of my graduate students, Brantley McCord, who's a very swell guy who knows Unreal like you wouldn't believe. And that is where you get that personalized attention. And when you get stuck on something, and everybody gets stuck, and you're learning something new. So that's part of the territory. But Brantley or ourselves, but usually Brantley is there to like be right there when you have a question and help you out, so you're not lost in a sea of 150 other faces.
And yeah, that's good to know, just about the department overall. And then classes in general at Purdue, like when you're doing some general education things, they'll be larger like that as well. Some classes will be smaller, so it'll be a mix of things. So, but yeah, good to know your lab experience will be a little bit smaller and working with those TAs and instructors there as well. So very cool. So does this program or these two majors incorporate a portfolio that students will be completing as they go through the program? And Rob, I see you're nodding your head, so I'm gonna call on you for that one, and Nasheet, we'll go to you next as well.
All right, yeah, no, that's a great question, and absolutely yes is the answer. And professors Whittinghill and Triplett and myself, as well as the rest of the games faculty, have really worked hard to take what already existed with portfolios and kind of beef it up. I mean, there's going to be actually 3 different classes for you that are just about the portfolio. Like you take a portfolio class your sophomore year, where with that one we don't expect the content to be industry ready yet, but we expect you to have a website that's decently well put together. You're going to put one together by default in Professor Triplett's class, so you'll definitely have it. Then when you're juniors, you'll take a portfolio class where we expect the content to be along the way, further along, right? Not all the way there, but there should be a clear direction. And then the last one, 405, it's called, that's where we're really looking at it with the, sort of lens, really closely to see if it's ready to compete for entry-level industry jobs. So we prioritize that very, very highly here because it is completely one of the things that will make or break your career post graduation is that portfolio.
And Nasheet, I think I saw you down your head earlier as well for that kind of question.
Yeah, so for animation, there's a class called CGT 442, which I teach. And it goes through the whole process of setting up a portfolio website, resumes, cover letters, and just general advice about networking and how to get your foot in the door in the industry. And at the beginning of the semester, students propose ideas for projects based on their own research on job postings that they're interested in, so that they can find ways to showcase their skills and maybe specialize in an area of animation. And one thing a lot of people don't understand coming into the major is that there are a lot of different directions you can go with animation. You could do modeling or rigging or texturing or lighting, and all of those require different skills. So by someone's junior or senior year, they have a pretty good idea of what direction they might want to go and what kinds of projects they want to showcase. And they can get a few iterations of feedback from me and from the other students in the class to work towards that goal.
All right, very cool. Glad to hear that. We've got a lot of questions coming through the chat, which is great. Thank you all for submitting those. I think I prompted our panelists before this question, which we typically get. What kind of computer or laptop recommendations can you all provide, if any? And Dan, you want to go and take that one for us?
Yeah, I actually just had a meeting about that today, so I think I'm the guy. So there depends. I would definitely say if you're in the games, and probably I would even say in VFX, you probably need to go with a Windows-based machine, because one, for games like the NVIDIA cards play better with the game engines and stuff, so that you can't get an NVIDIA card on a Mac. I'm actually on a Mac right now, and I use it as like kind of my daily driver for all kinds of things. But when I need my power, I have another PC that I use for that. So, and the other thing about, like, especially if you're going towards the VFX side, VFX has a very high RAM requirement. So you know, you want to get as much RAM as you can. I would say, you know, if I don't like to go in and say, go get this laptop. But I've actually was the person that wrote up the document for our department on like what specs we would get, you know, depending on majors of, well, at least for the majors I'm involved with. We had other professors write up the other ones, but you know, you want to get at least like an 8-core CPU that's hyper threaded, which means it'll look like it's 16 cores, but it's technically 8. You want to get, I would say, no less than 32 gigabytes of RAM, and you want to try to get like the most, you know, modern graphics card you can get. I think we're in the 3000 series of NVIDIA right now. I mean, you can get a AMD card too. That's fine. But typically, if you're doing games, I would go with the NVIDIA cards. So like a 3070, maybe even a 3060, but if you can get like a 3070 NVIDIA card or a 3080, and of course, if you can get a 3090, go get a 3090 if you can afford that. They're very expensive. But yeah, just I would say that would be baseline. And if you can get more, then by all means get more. Especially people don't realize if you get more RAM, it makes your computer like in 2, 3, 4 years, your computer will still seem like it's pretty peppy because your RAM was high enough that it can handle all of these applications running at the same time. So that's just sort of a baseline. I don't want to tell you. I could tell you personal laptops that I have, but I wouldn't want somebody to buy one and then it goes bad and then it's my fault, you know. So I'm just gonna say like, you know, look at the requirements and then read reviews. That's the big thing. You know, just look at the reviews and what people say about them.
David, you
Can I ask
wanted to
a
pop in?
follow-up question?
Oh yeah,
Sure.
Heather, go ahead.
Sure, go ahead.
We tend to give the students an answer in the recruiting events that, you know, whatever laptop you have now, bring it to campus with you and let it die. Because your freshman year, you're going to be using, you know, Word, Excel, PowerPoint for the majority of your classes. Anything that, you know, for the CGT side, you're working in our labs, so you don't necessarily need the laptop yet. And this way it gives you time to get adjusted to Purdue, figure out what those specs are you need for your major and talk to the professors directly. And then get something later, and that way by junior year the computer's not just old and obsolete. So would you recommend they buy that from the beginning, or would you recommend they wait?
No, that's not bad advice. I mean, that I guess if they don't have a laptop or if they think their laptop, I would say this: if their laptop is so old and doesn't have like a designated, you know, graphic card, then they may want to, or I should say dedicated, not designated, dedicated graphics card. They may want to have, if they're in animation games or VFX, I would say then they may want to have that because they're going to want to be able to do their work. Now, if they have a desktop that has all that stuff and they have that back at their dorm or whatever, perfectly fine. That's acceptable. But I would just say that there's a lot of times students don't want to go to the labs, especially when, you know, we're in Indiana in the wintertime, it does get cold and it snows and stuff like that. So I would agree with Heather that, oh, that's maybe okay, but be planning on like you will eventually want to get something that you can do your work on so that you can, you know, if you have to be at home, you can do it at home, or in your dorm, you can do it in your dorm.
So I would just add, when it comes to your graphics card, the thing you want to make sure it has is RT capabilities, which stands for ray tracing. Ray tracing has been, it's kind of, how do I say this without confusing it? It's not new. I mean, we've done ray tracing for decades. What's new is the ability to run it on a laptop. And the latest GPUs for probably the last 2 or 3 years will give you the ability to, through their RTX or RT capabilities, to do ray tracing like at home and at real-time speeds. The trend is definitely not going to go away from that. So if you're going to spend the money on a laptop, if it does not have RT capabilities, that thing is going to be obsolete pretty quickly. No matter how much RAM or whatever it has, you just have to have that RT on your graphics card. That's a hard requirement to spend money. Like you can get by without it, but for goodness sake, don't let anybody talk you into buying something these days that doesn't have RT on it right now. That's all.
Yeah, so just to follow up, if you get a dedicated graphics card, like in a laptop or desktop, and you buy a modern card, most of those cards will have the RT, but what Professor Whittinghill just said is a good idea to make sure that it does. Like if somebody's trying to sell you a used laptop, I have a used laptop from 2014 that I bought that was really really hot in 2014, and it's still completely usable, and I could VR on it and everything. On the other hand, though, if I was going to buy one new, it would blow the pants off of that. And you want to make sure it's going to last you through your college career at least. And even into getting like when you get out and you maybe are doing portfolio pieces to get a job, when, you might have you might apply somewhere and they say, hey, we want to give you an art test because this is something that I went through when I got my first job in the industry, and they give you an art test. You want to make sure you have a machine that you can sit at home and do that art test on. So that is something, if you're going, especially for games, VFX, and animation, you do not want to cheap out on your laptop or on your desktop, whichever one you decide.
All right, thanks for all the details and good advice, I think, for everybody back at home. So we've had several questions come through in the last few minutes about typical employers, internship experiences, what kind of opportunities outside of gaming and animation might be out there for students to go into as well. So I'm not sure who to necessarily ask that question. If anybody wants to throw their hand up and start that conversation, and then I'll have our students talk about some of those potential internships they're looking at. And Aidan, actually, why don't you go ahead and start, since you're kind of looking for those opportunities right now?
Yeah, so one way that Purdue offers for you to find these opportunities is the Center for Career Opportunities. And all you do is you search your specification, I guess, of what you're looking for. And I obviously typed in animation and Pixar, and I believe Disney also came up, but I was more so looking at the Pixar requirement. They do have you be a sophomore, so unfortunately I'm unable to apply for it until I become a sophomore, but I'm definitely looking at that. There were definitely a lot of options for art or animation in general. So yeah.
Cool. Uma Claire, I think you said you might be applying for some opportunities right now as well. What kind of places are you looking at?
So I found the majority of my opportunities through a mix of the department emails that Purdue sends out and then personal searching through like LinkedIn, that sort of thing. So actually, Professor Howard sent us all an email personally for those who are in this class with a link to the applications to internship at a place called Obsidian. They did Outer Worlds, which they were really well known for. Which was great. It was great to be able to see right away, oh, this is something I can apply to. I've applied to Gearbox. I've attempted to apply to places at, EA, that sort of thing. So you can find lots of opportunities really, really easily. And I feel really glad that I've been able to have such great professors that are really willing to link you up to those opportunities. But something else that I found to be really, really helpful is going and searching up specific studios, because a lot of times they'll have like resume workshops. In our CGT job fair, actually, Nickelodeon came and they had an Ask a Recruiter thing. So even though I couldn't necessarily apply for an internship, I got a chance to talk to the recruiters, was asked some questions, and I got some really good advice on my portfolio and how to better write cover letters, that sort of thing. And I ended up connecting with them on LinkedIn. So even as a freshman, when very few places are looking to hire the most baby face of people there could be, you can still get some really, really good opportunities that will let you semi get your foot in the door, or at least prepare your foot for that good kick into the door.
I like that. The good kick into the door. That's a good way to put that. All right. And maybe Heather, since you've been an advisor with our students and seen some graduates, where do you see our students going to go, after they graduate, kind of opportunities they have, both in their related field and maybe outside of that as well, if they found some other chances?
our students right now are kind of scattering everywhere at the moment, getting ready for summer for internships. So not necessarily graduation. I haven't met with my seniors yet for the surveys as to, what they're doing after graduation. I can tell you, current juniors, I mean, they're on that internship hunt. I got one super excited. She's going straight from Disney to Disney Manhattan. That's like, well, I didn't even know they had offices there. So apparently they have offices everywhere. So, but I've been asking them as we've done registration, where are you going? And I'm hearing, I got the one for Disney. I've got some in Milwaukee. I'm here in Dallas, Chicago. Those are just some of the few areas. And that's not animation game specific. That's for any of our majors.
Okay, cool. Good to know there's some opportunities all over the country as well. And for our faculty, any outcomes that you've heard from our students? Anybody want to pop in and let us know what you've heard students going on to do?
Well, I just want to say a few things about coming back to Rob talking about the portfolio class. A big part of that class not only looks at the work you've done, but we try to prepare you to have that conversation with recruiters and game companies and animation companies too. So you're ready to have that conversation. You've got what you think is your best foot forward might not be what they're looking for. And so everybody in the faculty, we all have industry experience. And so we're able to help you do a course correction before you have that conversation and be able to put forward what they're looking for. And so Rob, you were about to say something that looked like.
Yeah, yeah. In terms of just like kind of where students have gone after they've graduated and versus kind of what they're doing during their Purdue careers for internships, it's really a variety of things. I think that we actually just today I heard that one of our graduates from last year, he had gotten a job, a contract job, so it was going to end at a certain amount of time for I think for it's for Activision Blizzard. Well, he just today accepted a full-time position with Bungie today, and it's Isaiah Elazar, by the way, is you may have some of you know who he is. So that's an example of one of our successful graduates, the kinds of places they're going. But it's in terms of the internships. One of the things I want you all as new Purdue students to keep in mind is, when you listen to Uma Claire talk about this, there's an element to this that's sort of like you get out what you put in, right? Like, because to listen to you talk about it, Uma Claire, they'd just be like, there's a cornucopia of opportunities, which there are, but in games in particular, you have to kind of be willing to reach out and get them. Like, I'm definitely trying to email them out to you and making sure that you know about them and you're aware. But you do have to have, some gumption, I think, and a little bit more than maybe even other areas at Purdue where there's like, you just kind of show up and you kind of get funneled into things. No, there is this element in games because game internships can be a little challenging. Game companies actually kind of don't like to do them. So good job, Obsidian, having them, the companies that do, I applaud that. So just keep that in the back of your mind. Like, you have to be, willing and able to jump on these things when they come up.
Yeah, and just a super quick say that to make sure that I am inserting a healthy dose of realism, I did spend probably since the semester started at least probably 5 or 6 hours searching for those opportunities, and then I probably spent another 5 or 6 making my resume, making a bunch of cover letters, talking to people, and really shaping up and putting a lot of work into a starter portfolio, which is certainly nothing close to where it probably needs to be, but it's a start. So I spent a lot of time working on that.
No, put my hand up for nothing. Yeah, it's a good news, bad news situation. We're all excited talking about this, and it's an exciting career. It's great. We all love games and everything. And the good news is they want you, the game industry wants you more than you realize. They're desperate for you. The bad news is only if you're good. They are really, they want the most talented people. And if you're a C student and your portfolio is unremarkable and you do just enough to get the grade and then you just kind of lay low for the rest of the time, games is just not for you. Like, you have to be passionate about what you do. You have to have the attitude of a lifelong learner. I think that's critical. I mean, college is the beginning. You're just learning how to learn in college. And then you're going to go out and then you're going to really get good. And to do that, you have to have that attitude of like, I'm in this for life. I want to be the best I can be at this. And that comes through when they interview you and they talk to you and everything. Um, so, okay, that's kind of the bad news. But now there's good news even after that. Let's say you are the C student and you don't really distinguish yourself and you don't get picked up in the gaming industry. Well, you know what your silver medal is? Programming, teamwork, self-management, a lot. You're actually a very qualified person. Um, and our students who don't make it into the games industry still end up with great jobs. They end up working for government. They work in sales. They not like selling, but like digital marketplaces and things like that. Um, so I don't want to give the impression that if you come into games and you end up not getting a games job, that you're out of luck. Now it's, oh crap, I got to go back to college. Nope, you have some really great skills right then and there.
Wow, I don't know how to follow that up, but that was fantastic,
Thank you.
Dave. Thank you so much. The thing that I was going to add is, I feel like you need about a year and a half, or I would say almost 2 years to find out if this is something you're going to really, really dig into and do a lot and get to the point where you get really, really good at it. Because that's the key is like there's a lot of jobs out there, but you have to be quite good and be quite skilled for them to pay you to do those jobs. So I guess I would say it's not a math equation. It's not like saying if I, do 1 + 1, it equals 2. It's kind of like if you really buckle down and you really work at it and you really figure out where your niche is, then you can end up, for sure getting a job right out of school. And I'll let the next person talk. When I started at Midway Games years ago, which is the place that makes more or used to make Mortal Kombat, now they're called NetherRealms. I started out as an intern, and that was 3 months after I graduated school. And there was a guy who was started the same day for the same job as me. We were both doing the same thing, and he had graduated from the same school as I did, but 2 years earlier before me. And I tell my students this story a lot because I want them to know that, like, hey, if you spend the time now while you're in classes and you really buckle down and you really learn this stuff, then you can get a job right out of school. But if you, it's not something where they take they want people who are almost like you want to say elite. They want people who like you're not elite when you're a beginner, or I should say when you're a junior artist or junior whatever programmer, but you show all this promise and that you worked really hard and that you've got these this level of skills that you got just from being in school. That's the kind of stuff like the employers, they want to hire those people. But if you think it's like if I'm just going to do the bare minimum in my classes and just get through and I think I'm going to get a job in the game industry, that usually I wouldn't say that probably works out for most people. So that, I guess that's my message to it.
Actually, Nasheet, you should go before me because you haven't spoken on this yet. So,
Yeah, I just want to echo what everyone has said so far about if you really want a job in any kind of entertainment graphics, you really do have to work hard and not only work on doing well in your classes, but seeing how you can excel. And another skill that we really emphasize in all our classes is the ability to take feedback. Usually there isn't just one deadline where you turn in a project and you're done with it. By that time, you're expected to do a few different iterations, get feedback and try to polish until the end. So, you know, say you are that C student your freshman year, okay, like, can you go to your professor and ask, how can this be better? And just get it up to an A by the end of the semester. And, you know, once you're in the industry, it'll be the same thing. Like anyone in any stage of their career has to go to director review, get notes and address them. And that's a big part of your artistic growth and what's going to help you get that dream job that you're going for.
And I'll try to quickly add, 'cause I'm sure there's other questions, but you can tell we're all actually really, really passionate about this piece right here, right? Like getting the jobs after and having that success. To me, the best satisfaction I have had at this is when a student has been that sort of average student. They've gone through a bunch of the different classes, done okay, but not distinguished themselves, and they've taken, you know, one of my classes, and then they realize, oh yes, that's it. That's what I want to do. This is the thing I can work 18 hours a day on. Not that we want you to do that every day, right? But like, you know, we don't want you to burn out, but like you can do that because it's that much fun for you. It's that much, you know, you enjoy the work that much, right? When you find whatever that is, then it becomes almost easy. It's never easy, but it almost becomes easy to be that person that creates that incredibly polished work because you almost can't help yourself. And so with all the changes we've made to the freshman curriculum, the fact that you'll be taking a class from Professor Triplett and myself, and you'll be taking programming things and everything in your first couple of years, we hope that you find that, what that is for you, relatively early in your 4 years, so you have the rest of the time to hone in on that skill.
I'm just gonna follow up. Us professors, all of us here, you know, this is a job. We go to work. It's a job. They pay us. You know why we do it? What Rob just said. When you have a student who just kills it, and the greatest high is going to a conference. Like I go to the GDC Game Developer Conference every year. Going to GDC and seeing one of my students give a talk at GDC, or just come up to me and say, "Hey, you know, I'm at Blizzard now. I'm at Bungie now." I mean, there it is. There's nothing I want to do more at this job than see you all succeed. And we all feel this way. It's the reason we do it.
Thank you all very much for that wonderful back and forth insight about advice and outcomes and everything. That's really cool. I was just sitting here and enjoying the conversation, so thanks for that. Want to ask a question, a couple questions kind of to Heather actually about kind of the academic advising role, how students take classes potentially if they're interested in animation, if they're in game development or vice versa, or other majors in CGT. How does double majoring work? Are there some majors that really work well together in that regard as well that you can potentially touch on for us?
Sure. Animation and games, they fit together really well. We do have CGT selectives within the plans of studies. So each plan has their own requirements, but we blend them together and they're very similar. So we can just kind of incorporate the two together. Usually it's, you know, it is a few additional courses, but you do have free electives within each plan of study. And we use those free electives, you know, to add in another major or to add in a minor or even a certificate if that's what the student wants. We do see a lot of animation and games, but I also see a lot of students that will do, you know, games and then like a CS minor or animation and then a studio arts minor. Those are the most typical that I see. It used to be I saw a lot of double majors, and as the faculty over the past couple of years they have really created a lot of new courses. The students really want those courses, that they are really specializing in the games areas and then the animation areas, that there's been less crossover is what I've seen. Which is great to me because what I'm seeing is the students are very excited about the courses that our faculty are creating. And they're even using the tech electives and free electives to take additional CGT classes instead of, you know, just taking any class that, you know, oh, this one just looks fun. So it has been interesting to see the growth.
I think what it used to be, Heather, was the students would take them both because that's all they just wanted more. And if that's what's available, fine, I'll take it. It's not exactly what I want, but it's close, so I'll take it. And now that we have more courses, now they can take the stuff that they really, really want. And part of my job as the area lead is to kick my department head's ass into getting even more faculty so we can get even more cool classes for everybody to take. I keep charging up that hill, like, give me more industry pros and put them in the classrooms.
They're very excited about these new courses that the newer professors are creating like daily. There has been a lot come out here within the past 2 years, and the students are now having to decide, well, I really like this class, but I want to take this one too. And so now and advising, we want to make sure they don't end up in too many CGT courses in one semester and get bogged down, because every CGT course is project based. They're going to spend hours on these. And they get so excited about the courses that they'll want to take 3 or 4 at a time. And it's like, you have to be very careful on your workload.
That's a good point.
Yeah, and Claire, you had something you want to add as well?
Yeah, so I'm one of the students that's actually crossing over. I have talked a lot to Miss Mayorga over this because there are so many cool classes just in CGT alone that I was like, I want to take all of them. It feels like even though we have so many projects and have so much work to do, it clearly feels like there is a big workload. Like, I'm not discounting that at all, but just because of the nature of the classes and the kinds of projects we do, it feels like I'm working on a bunch of hobbies at once as opposed to working on schoolwork, which means that for someone like me who is trying to stuff as many CGT courses into my plan of space I can, I feel kind of disappointed sometimes that I can't take all the classes. I'm sitting here like, I wonder if I could take a summer course or something like that just so I could get more of it. I'm so excited. It's just mind-boggling how cool that this degree is.
Kind of going off what Claire said, also working with people like your peers who are also equally as passionate about what they're doing is something that's really cool, because you both have so much strive and so much like passion towards your projects that it's gonna turn out good no matter what. Like, I used to hate group projects, and now I love them because I get to collaborate with my peers and I get to make something like it's a little baby. Like, we made something together and it's so beautiful and it's so fun.
And even to jump on that just a little more, the final project I'm doing right now, I have a really great team of people who are excited about what they do. I actually met my first person who is super into making audio for games. And so when I originally pitched my idea, I was like, oh, I'm imagining like this is visual look. And before we even got really far into the project, he DM'd me on Discord with a full song, a 3-minute long background audio for this game that I had imagined, and said, hey, what do you think about this for this particular thing? And it was perfect. And when I mean it was perfect, I mean it fit well. I thought that I was listening to an actual game soundtrack. And just because of that, I got to meet these people in person. We meet up every week. It feels like rejuvenating almost to be with excited people and excited students to work on an exciting project. And it's one of the best experiences I think I've ever had in school.
Well, actually, we have a
Just wait
question
till your
from-
baby starts taking real steps. And what I mean by that is you start seeing your game on Steam and at various marketplaces. Woo, that's a high.
So we do have a question for the students from the chat. So what made Purdue's program your top choice? Why did you end up choosing to enroll in the Polytechnic? So Aidan, you want to start with that one?
So I actually applied to 13 different schools before I ended up at Purdue. So obviously I looked at a lot of different colleges and a lot of different options. And for me, I was leaning more towards an art school because I wanted to get that foundational art and then move into animation. But I realized it was one, very expensive, but two, Purdue offered more opportunities for me, not only in the equipment they offer, which is like they have huge Wacom tablets in all of the labs, and they have these beautiful computers that can run any program perfectly for free. And most of the labs are 24 hours, so you can go in whenever you want. And then also, a lot of the professors have worked in the industry and have that experience and bring that experience into what they do. So it's really interesting because I ended up here because of the opportunities that is offered and how wonderful it is, and also for less money, which is always a plus. So
So, as much as I would love to wax poetic on it, basically the same thing that Aidan said about just the number of opportunities, I think that there's a really interesting point of view or outlook a lot of Purdue students had that I saw that was a lot different from other colleges. I had applied to places like WPI, Rensselaer, a bunch of the kind of up there private schools, and I was lucky enough to be able to get into most of them. But the reason I chose Purdue was because Purdue is an engineering school. I came from a science and engineering high school, and because there is a really interesting blend of design processes and thinking between like engineering and art, and I'm very much an artist. So I was not really expecting to think that, ooh, engineering is great. But the because of the engineering like outlook for that you kind of just get by being at Purdue, I feel like I have a really blended interdisciplinary outlook on my work that I could easily see being transferred to a wide variety of disciplines if I ever find out the games isn't for me. Like it's almost like the outlook is your net if something goes wrong. And I think it serves to have a lot of really interesting conversations with other people that you know outside of games. Like I can talk to other engineers and be able to explain my process in a way that they understand and for me.
Hey, Rob, you want to add something?
Yeah, I'm just responding to a chat question that you put out there in terms of, is there a course for developing music for games? The answer to that is sort of. There is CGT 375 Game Audio. It's one of our tech electives, which means it's a course you can freely take, I think basically beginning your sophomore year. Now, the reason why I say sort of is that game audio doesn't just include music, right? There's sound effects, there's voice acting, Foley work. This is a course I teach because I've done game audio in the industry, and game music is part of that. It's a component of that. So if that's an interest you have, you'll definitely want to take that class during your Purdue career.
Rob has even seen an orchestra play his compositions.
Yes, that is actually true. The company I was working for at the time, we were doing a sort of a tech demo for Epic Games. They kind of subcontracted it out. It was like for Samsung smartphones. One of those things that it's the sort of high graphic fidelity demo thing that show off the graphics power of their latest chips or whatever. And they, needed music for it. I wrote some music for it. Epic really liked it, and because it's Epic Games, this was before Fortnite, by the way, and it was still very much like this, where they had tons and tons of money even before Fortnite, and they were like, "Yeah, we'll just have an orchestra record it, no problem," right? And they did, right? So that was pretty incredible. That was a highlight for me for sure.
That does sound pretty fantastic. So, last question I'm going to ask, and I'm going to start with Dave and then end with Nasheet. How do you see your industries evolving in the next few years? We talked a lot about new courses that are being added that students can take, and how do you see these programs evolving over the next few years? And how do you see the Polytechnic keeping up with that evolution as well?
So Epic, speaking of Epic, their newest Unreal Engine 5, the company is really trying to become a cross-media sort of entertainment company. And so it's not just about games, and running around and pew, 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 and that kind of stuff. The Mandalorian, the Disney Star Wars show, those backgrounds are all done with Unreal Engine. They're using game engines for that, and that trend is really picking up. And Epic is working hard to make sure it's easy for filmmakers to and people shooting commercials and anybody who might need to create a fanciful background. They're making it very easy to do that. And so, I mean, that's the trend. I'm reluctant to go more than 5 years out because, you know, come on, like 5 years ago, some of the stuff we have now, could any of us predicted it? So 5 years is my limit. And I would say that you're going to see game engines used in a lot of different places. Unity's coming along too, but Unreal just has such a big head start.
Yeah, actually, that was what I was going to talk about too. Using game engine rendering to render animation because the gap in quality between the two has become smaller and smaller over the years. So I think also we'll see that integrated in a lot of our courses for animation as well.
All right, awesome. Thank you all very much. So that does wrap up our discussion for tonight. So I want to thank everybody at home, viewers, for watching and joining us for this broadcast today. We hope we got some good insight about this computer graphics technology department, these couple of majors here. Thank you for our amazing panelists for joining us today as well and sharing their insights and experiences within the Polytechnic. And thanks to John, our technical director behind the scenes, helping us out with everything. Make sure this broadcast went smoothly as well. So as I mentioned before, if we didn't get to your question in the chat, if you have any other questions that you think of later on, please feel free to send us an email to techrecruit@purdue.edu. If you have any questions, again, about anything related to this department, the Polytechnic, or Purdue overall. There are still a couple more on-campus events coming up. Purdue's for Me is the name of those two events. You can come and join us on campus and meet with our students and our faculty and staff as well. April 4th and April 12th, those 2 dates remaining. We also will have a student life focused YouTube broadcast coming up on April 19th. So what's that, 3 weeks from today? So same place you found this one, we'll send out an email and let you know when that's happening as well. Lots of information and engagement opportunities on our admitted student page. And you'll be able to watch this broadcast again by going to polytechnic.purdue.edu/live and clicking on the link for the CGT dated project or broadcast for March 2022. So just a quick reminder though as well, to accept your offer, do that by May 1st, your offer of admission from Purdue. And if you have any other questions, again, please reach out to us, let us know how we can help. Thank you all again for joining us and have a great rest of your night, and boiler up.